Welcoming evening for all of y'all, and good evening to our esteemed guests and our valued public who are joining us today on this amazing event. Firstly, I would like to welcome you for this significant occasion, International Men's Day, as we unite globally under the theme of Zero Male Suicide. In our shared commitment to mental health, let us stand together to raise mental health awareness and foster support. I invite each one of you to join us in a moment of silence, to appreciate, to reflect by lighting a candle for a minute. Together, we can contribute to breaking the silence surrounding male suicide and promote a world where every individual's mental well being is valued and protected. Now, let's together light up a candle and observe a moment of silence. Thank you for being part of this important initiative.
Just a quick thing, if you guys can stand up for a second for a moment of silence as well.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for being part of this moment. Now, before starting the event, I would like to read through the disclaimer. We would like to remind you that Voice of Man's 360s mission is always delivered with good faith towards peaceful harmony. The views and opinions expressed in today's episode are those of our speakers and do not necessarily represent Voice of Man's 360. Our organizations engages in discussion forums to offer inspiration and create awareness of the issues of men who wish to overcome their life challenges. We are not providing medical or therapeutic advice. Should you require that type of assistance, we recommend you to contact a professional medical professional immediately. If you have questions or concern about today's episode, we welcome you to contact us via the email info@voiceofmans360.org. Thank you. Now, before we start the event, I would like to pass the floor to our moderator, Mr. Suresh. Suresh?
Suresh, you had to unmute.
Warm welcome to our guest, panelist and guest from Malaysia, Southeast Asia, Asia, and globally, even from US and Canada, who's logging in at this moment via our multiple channels over YouTube Live, FB Live, and LinkedIn Live. Thank you for making time to be here on this Sunday evening, or even at your time, maybe back in US or Canada on this wonderful Sunday morning. Today is a very special day. We are having a special panel discussion in line with International Men's Day Observance 2023, as it falls on November 19 this year. Zero male suicide, that's the global theme for this year. And it is a very critical subject, not just especially critical post-pandemic this year, having seen all that has been happening for the last 3 years. International Men's Day, Malaysia wants to present this virtual event to you with the support of International Men's Day and Voice of Men 360. Let me share a couple of things about IMD in case you haven't heard about us or do not know much about us. International Men's Day started back in 1999 in Trinidad Tobago by Dr. Jerome Tilaksing, and today nearly 94 countries around the world are joined together, and we have been doing various activities regularly. Yeah, IMD follows 6 pillars, which is the overall well-being of boys and men. That's, in summary, the area of concern for Voice of Men 360 and IMD. So the subject today, in line with the global theme, it's very, very critical, and we have got esteemed panelists today, 4 panelists on board today. Thank you to all of our panelists, Dr. Ravi, Dr. Florence, Sinniah, Salim, Satori, and Mr. Gangadara. I'll say in brief, Mr. Ganga, on board on the Sunday evening to be able to join us to share their expertise. All of them comes from various backgrounds, but they are all specialized on the subject matter at hand today. It is a tough subject, but so we need an expert to be able to tell us about it and talk about solutions, right? We're here to not to give as the disclaimer, to give you the answers to all, but to give you the way forward. First on board is Dr. Ravi. Dr. Ravi is a psychiatrist from Hospital Miri in Sarawak. Thank you for being here, Dr. Ravi. He leads a regional suicide prevention initiative called Zero Suicide Sarawak. He's a member of the National Technical Working Group for Suicide Prevention. So he knows exactly what he's going to talk about today and share a lot of statistics, maybe even case stories, case studies relevant to the subject matter today to point to the fact of how critical this is. Yeah. Next on, we have another esteemed speaker, Dr. Florence Sinniah, who is an accomplished professional with over 33 years of experience in human resources management. She has a PhD in business management and has served as the Human Resources and Ethics and Compliance Director for multiple multinational corporations. Dr. Florence has received several international and corporate awards for her contributions to management and community service, reflecting her dedication, expertise, and positive impact in both the corporate and social spheres. But more critically, she is the founder of Sneham, which is in a very well-known helpline based out of Penang, Malaysia. So she will be able to share so much about what Sneham is doing in Penang and in Malaysia. Basically, I'm sure they receive calls from all over Malaysia. And similarly, in complementing Dr. Ravi, she'll be able to talk about all the kind of calls coming in, how do they manage, and issues related to that. Next on, we have Mr. Salim Satori. Very interesting person that I've got to know in recent months. I would say, I'd like to say, very colorful journey he has had. He is the author of the book Depression is So Painful. Salim is a fighter who won the battle against depression and suicide. His book is the guiding voice, a signal amongst the noise, a clarion call for us to learn about depression and bravely seek help scientifically and by confronting the dangers of untreated depression, which might lead to suicide. Salim is a corporate coach and trainer, and also is an international speaker. He has become, before leading up to writing the book that I just mentioned, he has become a voracious reader, and the book is an excellent read. All of you should get a hand on it, and it will tell you the tough life he has had recently leading up to his mental health issue. Salim has also been featured in many well-known programs in Malaysia called Selamat Pagi Malaysia, the Sun Daily, Fresh Brew, national on the national TV over here, on various media channels and publications, and he has also been interviewed recently by authors from United States, Amazon, Pakistan, and India. Next on, we have Mr. Ganga. Mr. Ganga has also a very colorful profile. He was the former president of Befrienders Malaysia. Befrienders Malaysia is an organization similar to Sneham who receives calls on their helpline, and long established. So many cases similarly Mr. Ganga would be able to share, and he has served as trainers for the volunteers who get on board Befrienders to handle their helplines. He's also part of outreach teams to communities at high risk, who is at high risk to suicide. He has also served on technical advisory committees on suicide prevention, which is the Ministry of Health of Malaysia. He has presented research papers on suicide prevention at several international and local conferences. So that's, in summary, the four panelists that we have on board, all very colorful profiles and directly relevant to the subject matter today, which is in line with the theme Zero Male Suicide. We're going to have an excellent session, so please do share your questions on the chat sessions, yeah, the comment or slash chat session. As many questions, if we can handle them, we will, if time permits, we will handle them, all of them if possible. Yeah. Now over to you, Nirmala, to get it on the ground, off the ground.
Thank you, Suresh. Thank you very much for introducing all our amazing, well-experienced and well-established panelists. Now, without further ado, I'm pretty sure all of you all are excited to get to know them and also to hear from them, from their expertise. So I would like to firstly invite Dr. Ravi, all the way from Sarawak. He's here with us today. Firstly, Dr. Ravi, thank you for being with us despite your tight schedule. Thanks for sparing some time, and we're going to go into your brain and get some information from you. So, Dr. Ravi, my first question to you would be, what are the signs of suicidal behavior? Since the theme for this year is zero male suicide, this is what we are pledging for, we are vouching for, right? So before we go into that, we would like to know what are the signs and signals of suicidal behavior. Please share with us.
Yeah. Can you hear me? Hello?
I can hear you clearly.
All right. Thank you for the opportunity, and I really applaud the fact that people are doing this more, and especially in recognition to a vulnerable population, which is men. Men are a vulnerable population when we talk about suicide. There are often more 3/4 of suicides across the world. There is an overrepresentation of men compared to women who die by suicide. We would like to see what would be generically, what are the signs and symptoms of suicidal behavior. One which you would see is that, and it's often missed, is what people say, directly or indirectly. Most often than not, people who have suicidal thoughts have gone through what we call as they have been pushed into, or rather being trapped into, immense pain, immense psychological pain, and that could actually come in very much due to circumstances that happen around them, as well as situations, circumstances, things that happen in the environment, relationship crisis, loss of connection, socioeconomic challenges, debt, especially in the developing world. Debt is a very big problem as well. And then with the limited coping resources that sometimes these vulnerable individuals have, which sometimes they cope with alcohol and substances, etc. So that puts them at an increased risk. And one of the things, when they feel trapped and they're stuck in the pain, and then they feel that they are, well, not all, but some, not all but some, feel that there's no point to this and they are a burden and they've acquired the capacity to die by suicide, they sometimes vocalize these thoughts. And this verbal vocalization is often not taken seriously. Saying, even I want to die, I don't feel like living anymore, I feel this pain would go if this and this doesn't happen, if that loan doesn't come through, if I don't get to settle the loan, I might as well die. Maybe you don't need to worry about me tomorrow, I don't wish I wake up tomorrow. These rather direct, to some of the latter examples in direct signs, are very telling, but unfortunately are very missed, because it looks like, oh, they say they won't do it, they just say it. Or sometimes they are perceived as people who, are just trying to draw in attention, and they get missed. Even if they're trying to draw in attention, I guess they're trying to draw in attention to the fact that they have a lot of pain, and that is the thing that we have to focus on. So these verbal signs are often very serious, but often very missed. Or rather than missed, they are often ignored. Okay, so that's one key part of it. Then we are looking at behavioral cues, and behavioral cues can be so many. And in fact, these are things that you notice. You see that a person doesn't take care of himself anymore. They do have a poor self-care. They are no longer, they exhibit signs of psychological illness, depression, psychosis, etc. Especially depression, you see that they no longer motivated, they start withdrawing from society. Then you also note that when someone has an escalation of suicidal behavior, there is a rather drastic shift or change in personality. Someone could be excessively angry, someone could be excessively cheerful, or sometimes they would go around gifting things. They would be making wills, they will be making preparations for that. And the other thing that you see when people are going towards suicidal attempts and etc. is that they become increasingly reckless. There could be self-harm, substance abuse. So that sort of covers in a nutshell what you could see. It's not everything, but it is something. Another thing that we would like to be mindful is sometimes people who are suicidal can be actually very restless and agitated. This is often missed, and often, they say, hey, this is just an angry person. And, we don't mind him, we avoid the person. So that is something that is also missed. In some parts or some segments of society, they go on seeking for forgiveness, or sometimes even very interestingly, go towards or go away from spirituality. Again, a marked deviation from usual characteristics. So that's a bit about it.
Nirmala, please unmute. Please unmute. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Ravi, Dr. Ravi. I'm pretty sure that you may have heard more of these symptoms and behaviors in the public, especially after the pandemic. And I think many of them out there, you may have experienced what Dr. Ravi has mentioned. So probably you want to do some reflection, and you may want to seek some support. Now, let me move on to the next guest, and we are so privileged to have her. Definitely, she's the rose among the thorns, but she is so well experienced, and her profile is so inspiring. Now, without further ado, I would like to invite Dr. Florance. And Dr. Florance, my first question to you would be, could you tell us more about Sneham, and what is Sneham's mission, and the specific steps you have taken to address male suicide, particularly in Malaysia? Okay, Doctor.
Can you?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Can you hear me? Yeah, can you hear me? Yeah, okay. Good evening, Mr. Suresh and Nirmala, for the wonderful introduction just now. And thank you so much for having me in this forum. Really honored by the opportunity and privilege. I know that you asked me a direct question with regards to what we do at Sneham. I thought of, giving a little bit background about me besides my 33 years of human resource experience. Actually, I've got involved in suicide prevention work to close about 18 years now. My interest in the field of suicide prevention actually started when I was working in the organization, because when I was working as an HR person, I do a lot of employee counseling for issues like issues that affects their performance and interpersonal conflicts, productivity, delinquency. So in my course of talking to employees, I do realize that people are sum total of a lot of things. It's not just them at work. It could be issues at home, domestic conflict with the spouse, other socioeconomic factors. All these affect them. So I do a lot of counseling in my course of work in HR, and that actually created an interest in me to get involved in community work. So while I was working, I actually joined a non-profit organization to become a volunteer, and to see that how best I can contribute to the community on work related to mental health and suicide prevention. So I joined the Befrienders of Penang, and then so while I was there, my nature of work was just not limited to answering calls. I was involved in a lot of project work, going out to the community, doing suicide prevention among youth, and then a lot of other things I was doing. That's when I realized that there's a need to take this work local, right? So I decided to think about starting an organization where the services can be provided in other languages besides English. So that's a bit of history on how Sneham was formed. So my corporate experience with regards to people issues at work, there was a huge need, because in my employee counseling experience, I've heard people talking to me about ending their life. So then I thought there's, so much for me to do in that area. So I started Sneham in 2018. And so what we do at Sneham is basically our vision is no life should be lost by suicide. So that's our vision. And our mission is all about promoting mental health and well-being to all Malaysians, irrespective of race, religion, gender, ethnicity, social status. And how do we do this? We have 3 strategic objectives. One I call crisis intervention, whereby we have a toll-free helpline that people can call us if they are in an imminent danger of taking their life, or even if they are feeling lonely, they are in distress or depressed, they can actually call our helpline, speak to our volunteers. That's one option we have for them. Our services are free, and it's confidential, non-judgmental. That's crisis intervention. And then the second big piece of work that we do is advocacy. We do a lot of awareness campaigns, workshops to promote the importance of mental health, to recognize early warning signs of depression and suicide. We also talk a lot about coping skills. This is in the early stages before someone border into the lines of sickness, where they actually need professional intervention. So in early stages, we promote a lot of awareness campaigns. I keep stressing the importance of mental health, coping skills. And so that's a big, chunk of work we do. We do a lot of community outreach. We go to the community, we talk about the subjects, any issue that touches the lives of people and it's affecting them. We do programs, campaign. And this particular month, we actually are focusing on Stop Bullying, which is in month of Penang's Orange. So that's targeted population, children. We talk about Stop Bullying. So apart from community, we also do a lot of school campaigns, again, stressing the importance of mental health. We also do surveys to pulse the emotional well-being of kids and provide face-to-face sessions with them. And the third strategy we have is collaboration. So suicide prevention work, Sneham alone cannot bring an end to suicide in Malaysia. So we collaborate with any organization, be it government agencies, private agencies, non-profit organization. They are all like our support networks. So we work with them. They provide us a platform to go talk about Sneham and our services. Sometimes we get a lot of referrals through them. So in that way, we make our work known to the community, and we continue to provide support, mental health support, emotional support to our callers, and we explore options with them. And I understand that the question now is about men. I do acknowledge that the number of suicide among men is 2 times more than women. So I am a person who is very data driven. So gender specific approach to suicide prevention is the right way to go, because when we have data, when we skew the data by gender, by age group, we can come up with appropriate intervention strategies. And that's very important, because otherwise we can go on talking about generic things. So the issue will leave unaddressed. So I actually support gender specific approach in terms of addressing suicide prevention. And so this is our first participation, I should say, in terms of male suicide prevention. So thank you for inviting Sneham. So by teaming up with this organization, Bands of Voices 360, this is our first initiative focused on male suicide prevention. We do have subsequent plans on what we should do moving forward. So this is briefly about what we do at Sneham, Malaysia.
Thank you so much, Dr. Florence. And I totally agree with you on the statistic. It's sad to say that the male suicide numbers are double compared to women. And well, it's alarming, but something needs to be done, and that's why we are here today. And now let's move on to the next panelist. I would like to invite Salim. Hi, Salim. Salim.
Hi, Nirmala. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
I can hear you clearly.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, we have heard from the expertise, the specialists who are experts in their field, and through their qualification and experience. Now I would like to hear from you, Salim. And before that, I would like to thank you for coming up front to be with us, not just to be with us today, but to share your own personal experience. That's precious. And all of us are actually, I would say, privileged to have you today to share from your own experience. So Salim, my question to you is, what causes depression? What really causes depression from your own experience? Share with us.
Thank you, Nirmala. Thank you, everyone. The panelists, superb panelists, very interesting, talk started by Dr. Ravi, Florence. I'm a person who went through depression, lived it, and popped the pill, that is Prozac. Now, there could be 1,001 reasons why one goes into depression. There could be biological reasons, psychological and social. I went into depression because of COVID-19 lockdown. I do service industry. I'm a conference producer. I conduct training across states, traveling. So basically my business was totally, stopped permanently, say for 2 years. There was no training. So I'm a very active person. I go out, to work. And suddenly I realized that the whole 2020, there was not a single training for me. So I thought things will get better, things will improve. But here comes 2021. It got worse. I did get a couple of training days, but it got very, very worse throughout the day. And I didn't realize I had dark thoughts, very dark, negative thoughts. I feel something that is empty inside me early in 2020. But I say, okay, maybe it was just sadness and everything. So I continued throughout 2021, but I had serious mood changes. I can't eat well, I started to cry. Out of no reason, watching TV, I cry. I went to the supermarket, I cry, just like that. I couldn't control this crying. So one day on November 2021, it is in my book. I can show you the face the day I collapsed at home. This is the day I collapsed at home. I told my wife I'm going to get a heart attack. I cannot move. I felt so stiff. So she took me to the clinic. I told the doctor, I think I'm very sick. So I was very lucky. This doctor was able to detect that I was having clinical depression. I met the requirement. So she asked me, the most important question. You were depressed for nearly 2 years. And why? And you are still alive. She couldn't believe. She couldn't believe. So that is my story. And the reason why we fall into depression usually is object loss. Anybody can get depression. You lose your job as a parent. That was difficult because I was a breadwinner. That was one of the reasons. But also could be a loss of a family member, could be a traumatic experience, could be many other reasons. So when I got well with Prozac, within 20 days, I was able to reduce this panic attack, suicidal thoughts, and extreme anxiety, just like Dr. Ravi mentioned. Extreme restlessness. I was just pacing around in the house like a madman. I cannot control myself. I even went to see the doctor. I said, Doctor, why don't you sedate me first? But I was very lucky. Doctor said, try Prozac. And within 15 days, though it had many side effects, I was able to come above water. So when I decided to write the book, because I want to tell my story. There's so much stigma in Asia today. And I decided to tell my story of the frustration I feel with the people around me. The people around me as a middle-class Malaysian, the people around me, virtually none of them understood depression. That's why it is so dangerous. They think, I'm supposed to be a strong man. They think you're feeling low, you need motivation, all that, you should go for more spiritual retreats, all that. They were wrong, and they are highly educated people. So you can see how dangerous it is. Depression, just like cancer, you cannot see until it's too late. So the book is ready. It took me 1 year, 3 months to write. The reason I wrote this book is to describe how someone can go so low in life and the pain ones go to, the day-to-day suffering of depression, and how I came back. It was a near-death experience, and I am still surprised why I'm still alive, Nirmala. I'm still surprised until today why I am still alive, Nirmala.
Well, you are alive to write the book and to share your experience with the rest of the public who needs that. Not many out there who have gone through, been there, went through the depression, and can come
Thank you,
up
Nirmala.
front
Thank
to
you.
share
Thank you,
when
Nirmala.
it takes courage. It takes a lot of determination to come up to speak, to share from your own experience. So, Salim, from your sharing, what I get is the medication has really helped you, and you actually managed to come almost out of your depression, and you also prevent the suicidal thoughts that was running within you, right? Thank
Yeah.
you. I'll come to you later for next questions. All right. Now I would like to invite our next speaker, Mr. Ganga. Thank you so much for being with us today. I would like to ask you, Mr. Ganga, you have a tremendous experience, and you have been in this industry for many years, right? So I'm pretty sure you have come across many people from different walk of life. In particular, I would like to ask you about elderly people, considering their plight, where they're elderly, their age, and how can we actually reach out to them to assist them? I'm pretty sure they have another, form of depressions or another form of suicidal thoughts that would also be running in them. It could be due to any reasons, but when you come across elderly people going through this kind of situation, how would you actually support or help them? Mr. Ganga, you need to unmute yourself.
Can you hear me now? Yeah, thank you very much for giving me that opportunity to share. Let me start by telling you how I joined the Befrienders. That was 49 years ago. A working colleague of mine ended his life by ingesting poison. When I attended the funeral, I was badly shaken when I saw the plight that his family was going through. He had 2 children and a wife who could not fend for herself. So when the next time I heard that Befrienders were having a public talk, I decided to attend, not really with the intention of joining the Befrienders. But the chairman at that time, Dr. David Muthu, told me, he said, why not you join? If you don't find it not suitable for you, you can leave, So I said, okay, I'll give it a try. From that day, it was no turning back, And I'm not going to share very much of specific case studies, but let me tell you, when we talk about suicide among elderly men, there's a common factor, common symptoms that we noted. First of all, my experience dealing with elderly men is that culturally and socially, they are put on a pedestal as people who are very experienced and who can serve as guide to the community. So they take on this responsibility, And when it comes to their own problem, they feel inadequate to reach out to young people. And during my service to Befrienders, I find that quite often elderly people will pop the question, "You say, how old are you? You sound rather young, They explain that, why don't you just share with me? We don't really tell them our age, And I say, please share with me, Then as we go on, following our principles of being non-directive, non-judgmental, and being accepting, they come to trust us. So they start sharing, And then further on, my experience with elderly men was when we went on the outreach to plantations, where the Befrienders International told us the highest rates of suicides in Malaysia was among plantation workers, and what are you all doing about it, So that was an eye-opening experience. When we went there, we found that the men didn't want to speak up much, It was the ladies and the young people who came forward to share. Then what happened was, at first, I had to really brush up my Tamil to speak to them. You cannot talk in Bahasa or English. You have to speak in the community to reach out to them culturally. What happened was, the first session, they gave us only 1 hour. But there's good feedback. Then they allowed us to talk for 3 hours, And it was at the end of this session, I found that the men started sharing, And I was very surprised when the so-called elderly strong men from this plantation community started breaking down and sharing, And one of them asked, people come to talk to us about education, about financial problems. This is the first time somebody is coming to talk about giving emotional support, And he asked the question, where were you all this time, Then I realized that we had to reach out to inform community, taking this group as the elderly men. From then on, we reached out to the elderly community, and our plantation outreach, we reached out to conducted nearly 18 sessions all over the country on a roadshow, We identified the places at high risk, And we found that among the common factors that led to suicidal thoughts were loneliness, unbearable emotional pain, isolation, helplessness, and hopelessness. And generally, I find that this is a situation among elderly men. So we found that we have to give them the opportunity to share. And it seemed to work well with the Befrienders because, by listening to them, you're helping them to alleviate their loneliness. And when they start sharing, the unbearable emotional pain is also lessened, Then when they get comfortable with them, they realize that, the situation is not hopeless, no helpless. There are people who are willing to listen, So this is how, and how reaching out to, so we realize we have to reach out to the elderly community. So this is where we made a special effort to do outreach sessions to communities with a lot of elderly people. And we found that it worked, it worked. Although we found that a lot of volunteers did not feel comfortable with elderly people, but with our focus on training, on being non-judgmental and just being acceptance, they started trusting us. So very gradually, the number of elderly people started contacting us, And without going into many specific cases, our center is located near a popular hospital in PJ, and we found that, a lot of elderly people go there to the hospital and they don't go away. After the appointment is over, they just sit there, they want to talk to the nurses and the medical people. So, and they found that they just wanted somebody to listen, And so the hospital started referring these people to our center, which is just within walking distance. So we ended up speaking to a lot of elderly people, So it was very interesting reaching out to them. Then subsequently, I think our younger volunteers also became quite comfortable dealing with elderly people. See, the younger volunteers felt that, well, do we have the capacity? So we pointed out to them, look, just be yourself, give them a listening ear. Age does not matter, That, once you start conversation, there's two-way rapport, they start trusting you, they will share with you. And we found that it worked, that age did not matter, Then we used to tell our younger volunteers, look, taking yourself, one day you're heading in the direction of elderly people. So start dealing with them now. And when your time comes, you'll have the capacity. So I started Befrienders at a young age. Today, I'm a senior citizen. I find that I've gone through many challenges, including very poor health, I realized that how important it is, to be able to be aware of the needs of elderly people. Yeah. And, I spent time, I went through a stroke, and before, now I can empathize better with people who have undergone stroke, that what the feelings that they go through, the empathy, much better empathy there. And in fact, working with the hospital where I went to, the neurologist, when he heard that I had worked with the Befrienders, suggested, he said, would you be able to do sessions with elderly people here who are struggling to cope with their illness? I said, no problem. So that also I felt useful at that place, So the ways to reach out to them is to tell young people our usual, when you speak to them, our usual philosophy of being non-judgmental, non-directive, acceptance, irrespective of the class or creed or age, And so far it has turned out well, So now, at this age, my health problems are increasing, but I still feel the need that I can be useful, So I've stopped active duty because my hearing is poor now. I've stopped active duty, but I'm still helping out with from home, working from home on befriending through emails, which is very popular with young people now. Yeah. And I would like to end by, sharing with you the power of listening, because we emphasize a lot on listening. We tell our volunteers, listen, listen, listen. I remember many years ago, I had an elderly client who had lost his spouse, and he was in a dilemma. So he called, and that night he said, I can't bear it. I need a way to end everything, I said, please, why don't we talk about this, We talked for nearly an hour. When he turned out, that he has lost his spouse, and he had children all over the world, in US and Australia, and his son in Australia was persuading him to go to the country. He was reluctant because all his friends were here, and his memories of his wife also was all here. So he was very reluctant, When he spoke to me a few times, and he said, I'm making the decision. I'm not sure whether it's right or wrong. I'll go there and decide. He went to Australia. He went there. He called me a few times. After that, the calls stopped, for several years. So I used to wonder what happened to this gentleman. Then one day, many years after, on a festival day, he called somehow he traced the day that I was on duty. He said, I want to tell you something, You remember we talked about it? I said, please share a little so I know who you are. Then I realized who he was, He said, you may not realize this, but that night when I called you, I was ready to end it all. But you gave me time. You gave me time unconditionally. And that helped me, So I decided to go ahead to Australia. And he said, believe me, it's not easy in Australia. But when things get bad, I always remember you, that if there were people like you who are willing to accept me, there must be people in Australia who help me. So he built up his colleagues in Australia. So he was doing fairly well. So then this is one event which made me realize that just giving a listening ear can be very, very helpful. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Ganga. Despite your current health situation, a bit of limitation that you're having, but despite that, thanks for taking the extra mile to go out there to help the elderly with the current situations and their needs. And I'll come back to you. Now let's move on to our next panelist. Dr. Ravi, I have another question for you. Okay, I've heard about the signs of suicidal behaviors that you have shared with us. Now, what are the risk factors of suicidal behavior in men? And I do believe that we have different stages. We have men who are either working adults or the elderly, the different stage and different walk of life. From your experience and expertise, what could be the risk factors that will come up from their suicidal behavior?
Thank you. What we would like to think about, especially when we deal with men, why are men more at risk? In some parts of the world, you are looking at a 3 times risk compared to women, 2 to 3 times risk, and you wonder why. One of the things that we can actually figure out is first, let's look at the who. Which men or who are the men who are at risk? Not all men are at risk the same way. You would like to contextualize that. Depravity in general puts people at risk, and depravity can be socioeconomic depravity. Certain occupations carry increased risks, like in high-income countries, construction workers, etc. They are at an elevated risk. People who are working even in construction in low and middle-income countries, where you have migrant workers, etc., who are sole breadwinners, are at elevated risk when everything is on their shoulder and things don't work out. So that kind of situation is there. Then you also have gender and sexually diverse men as well. They are a unique group that has risk as well. And when you look at age, extremes of age, especially elderly, etc., then it comes to us that with men, their suicidal behavior can be rather different. It can it may manifest with sadness, it may manifest with isolation, but it also sometimes can manifest with agitation. I think what I've shared previously and what Mr. Salim has put forth very clearly, I think illustrates that experience much better than anything that I could say. However, I would like to maybe draw attention to what happens with men. Why men are so much at risk? The thing about it is that there is a social situation in which men exist, and that's a little bit different, not just little, a lot different compared to women, and in different parts of society is different. And that therein just comes into that trope of toxic masculinity, wherein there is a lot of emphasis since a very young age that one has to be strong, one has to man up, all those kinds of things. And that puts them at risk that a lot of traumas that they experience, and they could experience, including abuse, bullying, etc., difficulties, are kept silent. They are told, they're not literally, sometimes they're told, sometimes society itself sanctions that, oh, you should suppress those emotions, and that builds up, and that becomes a very lifelong thing that goes on, and until they are not even quite in tune with what they feel. We see men who could be depressed and they won't say they are sad, who could be suicide, who then actually, when they realize when things are not going well, they can't even recognize what's going on within them. So that's a real challenge. And another thing that happens is that because of this suppression and all of that, there is also problems with coping. How do you cope with problems? You're not allowed to express emotions. You have that painful feeling. The way one copes can sometimes be also dangerous. That includes alcohol, drugs, risk-taking behaviors, all of that. And that also elevates the risk of suicide. So you have this whole context where men live in this part of men grow up, live, mature in a way, and that's at every stage. Your boys don't cry. You have to be head of family. Everything's on your shoulder, and yeah. So that is a lot to put on one particular sex. Of course, I'm not going to say that women are free out of the problems, because when that happens, the opposite happens to women as well, wherein there is a lot of gender-based discrimination. But with the so-called position and privileges that do come, there's a lot of silencing as well of pain. Then come in the fact that when they don't fill these roles, there is a break of connection among peers, and that's hard. And when they feel terrible and they have signs and symptoms of mental illness like depression, it's very hard to get help as well, because seeking help goes against that whole strong facade that you have to put across. Then after that, what happens is one goes there, one tries to do it, and then one tries to get help, and you suddenly find that the services that you want to get help don't actually get you rejected by services. And that's not because people turn you away. It's just that services are not designed for men across the world. That's another problem. You go and try to seek help, and they sort of say that, oh, you should do this, you should write and think about your emotions, you reflect and all of that. Usual techniques don't really work. So that is also another thing. And when men become suicidal, they use very lethal methods, often ways that there is often point of no return when they decide to end their lives, or when they have a suicidal attempt. So that puts them at a lot more risk. And helping a suicidal man can be very difficult, because especially on the point of a practitioner's point of view, because this could be a person who doesn't want to open up, could be very silent, or who could be very, very angry, who could be very agitated. This puts a big challenge. It is difficult enough being in their situation and made with all the social challenges, even the services that want to provide help for them. It's also, it's not really easy for them to. So that sums up a bit why men's suicidal behavior is different. Men's suicidal behavior is different, and also the reasons why it is more compared to women.
Thank you, Dr. Ravi, from sharing from your expertise. This question that I've raised to Dr. Ravi, and also his answers, I believe it's something that I would also like to know from our other panelists. What are your thoughts and opinion about this? Because earlier, Dr. Florence did share with us that the statistic shows that men's suicidal rate is double than women. So from there, can we get some, I would say, inputs from other panelists on your thoughts about this? Why? I mean, yes, Dr. Ravi shared that, men have a lot of things on their shoulder. They are not a person who's expressive. They don't show their emotions, and the belief set that has been instilled in them is like, you have to be strong, you shouldn't cry, and all this, right? So now, Dr. Florence, Dr. Florence, and Mr. Ganga and Salim, I would also like to hear from each one of you on your thoughts about this. What do you think? And from your experience that you have came across. Maybe I'd like to start with Dr. Florence first, from your experience. Dato, you need to unmute. Dato, you need to unmute. Can't hear you. Can?
Yeah. Okay. I was just saying that my response is definitely going to overlap what Dr. Ravi said, because of the socio-cultural expectations that men are being brought up, boy children are being brought up to contain emotions to themselves. They are told to win. They are supposed to be the breadwinners of the family. So this has got a huge impact. Why I say huge impact is that when we get men callers, usually they actually call us at a very late stage. When they are in the imminent danger of taking their life, you get them to call. They won't call like women. Women, when they are down, when they're emotionally down, they will call you. They will talk to you. But men, they hold on everything to themselves. And also my experience is that when men do call, when they hear the voice of women, they will ask, is there any male volunteers? But after we give them the assurance that, we give them the space to talk, give them the listening ear, and assure them that the conversation is confidential, we are empathetic. I've had experience that the men who are reluctant to talk to me have ended up talking for hours, 2 hours, 3 hours. So we actually want a man to speak up, to share the emotions. And this is an issue with men because the way they're being brought up, keeping emotions to themselves, that they don't cry. And that's one of the huge factor. Of course, the other one, the type of calls that I receive is also socioeconomic factors, like Mr. Salim said, right? When he was hit by a crisis, he's a breadwinner, and that hugely impacted him. And the other one that Mr. Ganga shared about neglect, elderly people, elderly men have actually called our helpline and shared about their experience. One of the issues that I notice is that most of the time we are so busy with our life, our adult life, we don't plan for retirement. So when retirement hits us, they are shocked because they could have been enjoying big positions, big power. Suddenly they are reduced to nothing, and they find that it is so difficult to cope with that situation, and no one is listening to them at home. They feel neglected, lonely. All these issues also affect men. And of course, the other one is access to services, a stigma around mental health, and reaching out for services is still a huge problem, right? So they don't reach out. They think, I am not mentally ill, because of the stigma, and also don't know how to get access. So they would rather call helpline and talk to volunteers than to go see a doctor or psychologist. So and also men, because they are struggling with their personal emotional issues, tend to either talk to their friends, or sometimes they don't talk. They sort to habits like alcohol consumption, taking of drugs. So from one problem, they make the problem become worse by cultivating habits that's more self-destructive. So these are issues that again compound on the already problematic situation of men, and it makes them worse. And that's why Dr. Ravi said the types of suicide means they choose are more extreme compared to women. Actually, the fact is more women attempt suicide, but more men die by suicide. Women got saved, but more men die by suicide.
Thank you, Doctor. And I would like to pass on next to Mr. Ganga. The same question.
Okay. When we went on our outreach to the estate community, we were quite surprised. And it was true that, across the people who attempted suicide, a lot of women survived. The men, a lot of fatal cases because they adapted fatal methods like ingesting poisons, particularly paraquat, which has no antidote. So we were quite surprised, that, so we said we have to tackle, first of all, we supported the move to ban paraquat, which later was banned by the Pesticide Board, although the estate industry protested and said it's a big economic loss if they don't use paraquat, So we found that many pronged attack against suicide here, cutting off the sources of the ways of ending life, and reaching out to them. So we did training, not as befrienders, we could not be everywhere. So we got together communities from the estates got them to, we did seminars for them, religious groups, educational groups, and they formed groups which could reach out to the community. Logistically, it was more convenient. That too worked very well. So we are going on this lines that you have to look into every aspect, the emotional aspect, the physical aspects of cutting off the sources of suicide. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Ganga. Salim? Salim, you need to unmute.
I would like to echo what Dr. Florance, Dr. Ravi, and Mr. Ganga said. I agree with them. One of the main reasons I noticed, because I expressed the pain I had, it's a humiliation. And sometimes the most difficult was, you see, stress, unrelenting stress, towards a person can lead to depression also, because you freeze, you try to fight. But also under stress also can create a problem. You see, I'm an intellectual, I'm a philosopher. I do high order thinking stuff, and suddenly I'm sitting there like just Dr. Ravi said, I feel useless. It became a useless class. No economic value to my family and the society. So it was hard because the people around me, what Nirmala told me, Salim, tell your wife, since you have Arus Produa, open the booth behind and sell nasi lemak. They just told me like that, the people I knew. And some even told me, be a Grab driver. No, I understand these are temporary solution, temporary, but we need a permanent solution. What's the permanent solution? How can we help this industry in the future? Because if there's another pandemic, are we going to just go down and say lockdown? Because as we were flattening the curve, we flattened rice bowls. There were discrimination in the business, essential and non-essential business. Bar, pubs, restaurants, all closed down. Airlines, tourism, all wiped out. Conference right up. We were just flattening the curve, and depression showed its face quietly. What was the physical result? Yeah, we can see suicide. We have to prepare. We have to prepare. So it was very hard as a father, as a man, that I cannot put food on the table, because a lot of people around me, especially told me, Salim, bite the bullet. Things will move on. Things will change. Some even told me when I showed them the manuscript, why did you write this book? Why you want to waste your time? Nobody buy your book. I say, I'm not J.K. Rowling's. I'm not going to. I'm not interested to sell this book as a bestseller. This is a book to help people to come and talk. And trust me, the people who bought my book, many of them are having depression. Many had family members having depression. He said, Salim, you resonate with us. I want to talk because I want to leave a legacy. And my daughter, Dr. William Yapko, his book, Depression is Contagious. He said, high chances my daughter will get into depression because depression is also contagious. So she couldn't understand. She was 6 years old. Nearly 3 years, she said, what's happening to the dad? What's happening to the father? So this is a legacy. And trust me, almost everyone, relative, friends ran away except my only one friend, Gobinathan. He's a lecturer at Apu University. He was there from day one, and he actually told me, Salim, tell your story. I said, how, Gobi? Tell your story, the magic of Prozac, the magic of science, the magic of antidepressant. I'm not promoting antidepressant. It worked for me. But one of the biggest side effects of untreated depression, you kill yourself. I was there. I nearly attempted. So this is my story, and I have to agree with everyone that the social stigma, the societal pressure as a man, especially in Asia, is serious. Stigma comes from taboo. You want to destroy the stigma, change all the taboo. A taboo, even a university won't, even a museum won't accept. It is something, it's not even an artifact. Taboo can be changed by new narrative. Let's tell a story. Destigmatize depression like HIV, breast cancer, cervical cancer. We talk about depression because mental illness is just like any other illness. So that's why we need to talk about it. And my aim is to destigmatize. My aim, I champion psychologists like Dr. Ravi. I champion them because let's all work with science. If you need help, meet the right psychologist, meet the right psychiatrist. They are there to help. Don't go to see any shaman or anyone because they cannot help you. Trust me, they cannot help you. Depression is a disease only can be treated with scientific support. scientific support. So this is my story, and the sad part is that the social stigma is real. That's why many men are not coming up and talking about it. So this is a good platform to really talk about it.
Salim, I have more questions for you. Okay.
Oh.
Do you agree with me and probably some of the statistics out there that many professionals, many people who are educated, well qualified, highly qualified professionals are actually going through depression or have the thoughts of suicidal, but they have this ignorance of seeking for support? And for you, Salim, you are a professional, you are an expert in your field. At that point of time, you were going through the depression, right? Okay, which many out there are going through, might be in the same shoes of how you were back then. How did you overcome this? How did you tackle that situation, that moment, for you to overcome, come out and seek for support? What triggered you to do that, and how did you push yourself to seek support?
See, Nirmala, the danger of a depression, you cannot, we are using the word depression just like that, Nirmala. My coffee machine is not functioning. Oh, I'm so depressed. Wrong. It is, I'm disappointed. You know when you are sad. You do not know when you're depressed. I didn't know. I was an educated man. 2 years I was suffering with so much pain. I didn't know. So when I collapsed, the doctor told me there's no other way. You try Prozac for 6 months, things will work out. Then I realized the realization of science, treatment. But many men out there, why they don't want to seek treatment? Because stigma. And one of my colleagues, she coaches CEOs, she said that 5 out of 10 CEOs have suicidal thoughts. Why? Because again, position, they are afraid they will no longer have that position. They might lose this lifestyle. They have this suicidal thought. What happened if I don't make my next quarter? They have this thought. These are people with a lot of money, T20. My case was virtually wiped out. I got no food on the table, income loss. So these people are also are having that. So depression doesn't care whether you're rich or poor, young or old, male or female, whether you have religious belief or whether you do not believe in anything. It can just descend on you because of trauma and many other reasons. So when I realized that through treatment, I want to destigmatize depression by openly talking about it. And the sad part, you never know, like you said, you never know when depressed. When you already in depressed, it's a tragedy. There is no full recovery from depression. I still have my dark days, but I cannot go back and take Prozac. I have my dark days, but not as dark as before. I still, because I know I have the dark days. So I'm aware. Those days I didn't know. I fight with my wife. I argue with my daughter. Even my 6-year daughter, I fight with her. I don't know, for no reason. I get angry, agitated, like Dr. Ravi mentioned. Because I didn't know. That's why it's dangerous. Nobody knows unless doctor must diagnose you. There are 5 signs. Because if someone come and tell you he's depressed, who told you? I think I'm depressed. Yes, it must be a low mood for a long time. 1 month, 2 months, 3 months. A very low, dark mood. And you don't have pleasure. Anhedonia. You don't have pleasure even making coffee, making tea, combing your hair, taking a bath, even ice cream. Even Mr. Bean cannot make you laugh. No motivation can help. So that's why depression happened. My view, my research shows that so much stress someone went through, like Dr. Ravi mentioned, the coping. I tried to cope. I couldn't cope because it was a lockdown. It was any other economic crisis, I can go out. It was a total lockdown. I tried and I collapsed. The fight and flee cannot help. I try to fight, I lose. I cannot flee, then I collapse. So it was a total destruction of the self and humiliation. And the pain is so real. I pray nobody should be in this situation. I pray.
I totally agree with you, Salim. No one should be in this situation, and it's not fair for men to go through this. Now I'd like to move on to Dr. Ravi. Dr. Ravi, you have seen many people, you have seen many cases, and I'm sure you have helped them to a great extent. Now, from your experience and your expertise, how can you help someone who is going through depression or suicidal thoughts and to avoid the risk and to avoid them to going there to do it, to just stop with the thoughts and then to get them to come out of it and think about the next action. What would be your preventive measurements be?
Thank you for that question again. I think the answer has already been given in our forum. I think I really echo with what Mr. Ganga was sharing. Non-judgmental, non-directive listening. To listen is something that really is very powerful, and you don't need to have solutions. One of the um, one of the most useful things that we have found over so many years of working with people who are suicidal is to listen. And when we listen and we listen non-judgmentally, we allow a person that space, a space where they can actually open up and a place where they can actually come in to share about something that they have been keeping to themselves quite a bit. Going through suicidal thoughts is not at all easy, and certainly it is one situation where you are exhausted and depleted of your own resources. So that most powerful tool that you can do is to just be present and listen attentively. And when somebody's saying that, you can when you see someone who has exhibited a number of suicidal thoughts, the more suicidal behaviors or suicidal signs, the more you see, the more at risk a person is. You can sit and you can say, "Hey, you okay?" Or "Can we talk about it?" I'll listen. Sometimes people will say, "Hey, I'm okay, I'm fine," and then they'll brush you off. And it's important when that happens to not to be pushy, but to force a person to talk. "Hey, I don't think you're okay," going on and all going in and being forceful, because that can make them clam up a lot more. So I'm gonna say, like, all right, say that I'm maybe we'll catch up again. So allow them the opportunity, allow yourself the opportunity to check in back with them and to check whether they're okay. And when they share and they talk, and sometimes you see that they're sharing such intense emotional experiences, somebody may open up to you, they are facing terrible debt. And that's something that's quite a bit of a problem when we see men here. We see a lot of men who go through a lot of economic pressures, and because of the economic pressures, life at home has turned upside down. If they are to support a family, there's pressures at home, or they may lose livelihood. We have seen people who have lost their homes, some people who are living off the streets. That's very stressful as well. Or people who have a big drop of the economic state, the economic states. So you can sense, you can just validate that emotion, and that must be hard. And people going through such situations may feel that life's not worth it. That's a way an opener. Or may be feeling that it's no longer worth living, a life no longer worth. It could be. And when you ask that question, you ask about someone whether they have suicidal thoughts, you're not giving ideas for them to take their own life. That's a big myth. Asking about suicide actually promotes suicidal ideations. Never that. But we are not asking you to tell people a particular method to end their life. So that can be very counterproductive. But just asking, if this, things are not, it sounds so difficult. Are you thinking of something? Then that could allow them to open up. And when they open up in that space, you can allow them to actually share, allow them that space to share. And when they share and they start talking, you see, and then you realize that you don't have all the solutions. We are not here to solve people's problem. We're just listening. And when you're listening, you actually de-escalate them from an agitated state. Scientifically, what happens when someone is in a crisis, a lot part of the thinking part of the brain, we call that the PFC, the prefrontal cortex, is sort of not working well. So what happens is when you listen, you allow that control back, and people have a sense of calm and sense of grounding, and they can act better to solve their problems. And you realize that you do not, if you realize most often than not, if you're a layperson, you realize you can't tell them, you can't tell people, think positive and all of that. That's just going back into toxic masculinity, and that's, or toxic positivity. That's all not going to work so well. Man up, brave up, things will go, this thing, pray, things will get better. Doesn't Really doesn't. Please do not leave it to chance. So you realize when things don't work well, then you realize they have set a list of problems. You can actually think of then directing them to professional services. And that's when people get very agitated. Oh, I don't want to see a psychiatrist. I don't want to see a psychologist. I have, I'm not a crazy person. That kind of thing will happen. You can actually start introducing them to counselors or community workers or even a helpline. That may be where professionals are at who can actually listen. And then after a while, sometimes people need a little back and forth. Then they'll be ready to see a professional. Sometimes you can see that they have very clear, specific problems that are really stressing them up. Debt. You can bring them to agencies that help with financing. Like there are in different countries support for people who have serious debt. There are people who have relationship problems, and then there are agencies there to help as well. People who go through abuse, and that's welfare as well. So that if you can pick it up, try to help. If you can't, just direct that. If you realize you're completely out of that, get someone who can help you help that situation. So there is a lot of back and forth. But let's say you don't know what to do, just sit and listen. That is extremely helpful, very scientifically proven. That is the basis of almost all helplines and basis of most crisis care. That is, we don't try to solve problems. Nobody's there to solve somebody else's problems. And most people who are suicidal, in fact, most suicides also happen because of very complex reasons. They don't have one problem. You realize when a person starts talking, there's like A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and A relates to C, C relates to B, B goes about, and then, it's so complex, you suddenly realize you're in a web. You're not here to make a formulation. You're here to listen non-judgmentally, ask if a person's not opening up, direct them to services that are available. If you don't know what to do, always feel free to ask for help. There are a lot of people in the community now across the world, at least in the developing and developed world, to get help. It's not what it was 10 years ago or 5 years ago when such conversations were not possible. That it is much easier now to say when you say, I have somebody who's suicidal, I need to find help, there will be people who will be willing to help. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you, Dr. Ravi. Dr. Ravi, further from your sharing, I have another question to add on. There might be some public out there, some men out there who actually have this thought that I don't want to see a doctor, I don't want to see a psychiatric, I don't want to see anyone related to this, I don't want to seek help because I don't want to get medication, because medication is going to, give me side effects or whatever not that goes through in their thoughts and mind. But on your expertise, like I've heard from Salim shared that medication has helped him. So from your experience and expertise, Dr. Ravi, share with the public, with the men, that how medication can actually help them and more so can avoid suicidal among men.
All right. I think it's important to look that each crisis is its own. Each crisis is contextualized. Each person's life is unique. No two person who's suicidal is the same. I think that's an important starting point. That's something why people feel very resistant to get help, because they think that that person got this, so I also should get this. It's not the same, Oh, that person got fluoxetine, I also should get fluoxetine. That person has got mirtazapine, I should get that. These are names of medicine. Not necessarily. When we are looking at a suicidal crisis, when you look at professionals, when you're coming with a crisis, we want to see what's your state, whether we can work with you. Sometimes if you're coming in with a suicidal crisis, intoxicated, that sort of thing that's very common with men, they're very intoxicated. We can't work so much at that point. We would like to keep safe. So we take the lethal method away. I really have to thank Mr. Ganga for putting that point out, that taking that lethal method away. Sometimes taking that away is so useful. Taking a particular substance, method, sharp object helps a lot. Okay, putting or sometimes staying in a place where it's safe. Someone staying with them could be safe. So depending on their situation, we want to help someone in a crisis. We want to help them build a safety plan. We would like to help them build a safety plan to recognize their own suicidal thoughts, use their own coping skills, find support network within their circle, who they can talk to, and where are the professional services, and how they can keep themselves safe from a lethal method. There's a lot of brief intervention, and there's a lot of talk therapy involved. Medication is part of it, medication is not a be-all, end-all solution to it. I'm going to be very clear here. Medication is only a part sometimes, and it's not all the time, sometimes. If you have a diagnosable mental disorder, or you have a mental disorder like depression, and not all depression needs medication, moderate to severe depression may need medication, and it also does come to the choice of the person, by the way. We sometimes, you can't force people to actually have cannot force people to take something that they don't believe in. Some people want to do talk therapy. Some people want to look at building their coping skills. Some people want more things that work with them. So that's that. So it's a part of it. All right. Medication has been proven to be very effective in treating depression in some people. Yeah. And its efficacy is really good. We have had, I've seen so many people get better from a state and what does that medication do? What does an antidepressant do? Does it mean that you have so many problems, you take an antidepressant, suddenly your brain gets solutions to all the problems? No, it's not a magic potion. It's not a magic pill. What happens in depression? And I'm just going to focus on antidepressants here. We're not talking about other psychotropic medication like antipsychotics, etc. Whatever said and done, it goes there to target the problem in a chemical manner and what happens in the brain. Most mental illnesses, and here's another caveat, not all suicidal people have mental illness. In developing countries, 60% only have 60% have an illness, 40% don't. So let's say you have mental illness, what happens in your brain? When you are stressed, you realize that your certain neurotransmitters, these are chemicals that how the brain cells talk to each other, are released more. Let's say you have stress, you're stressed, you see, just imagine yourself that you see a lion in front of you or a snake in front of you, you get frightened. So why do you get frightened? You get chemical, you see the snake, your eye processes the snake, then your brain interprets that's a snake, and the snake can kill you. So you either kill the snake or you run away from the snake. You go there from that. So how do you provide that response? In order for you to do that, you need a lot more energy. You need your heart to pump faster. You need to be ready to run. You need to take a stick and whack the snake, or you want to dash out. All right. So you need that input from your brain to put those certain chemicals, those stress hormones to come in. Then it makes the response. So your body consequently has the adrenal surge. You have your heart pumping faster and all of that. But if you realize in anxiety, you don't have the snake in front of you, or you don't have the lion in front of you, but you're feeling that, what happens? When you're subjugated to chronic stress or trauma, there are changes that happen there which result in such firing. And that change is not normal. It's actually abnormal. It's okay to be anxious when your situation is scary, but if you have a disorder when it's actually that feeling is not productive, it's not helping you at all. So that's one way where you start seeing that, there's actually a change in the way that your brain cells talk to each other. There's a change in the way that you respond to situation. There's a change in the way when a person who is depressed often thinks the worst thing will happen when something happens. Example, when, let's say you go to the store, you go to, let's say you're going to wait in line to purchase something in a shop. If you're a depressed person, you say, most likely that will never happen to me, always thinking of the worst outcome. Why does that actually happen? Biochemically, there's a change. The way your nerves are talking to each other change. How do you revert that? That's all that treatment that you have helped. That medications help with the chemical part of it and helps with some remodeling. So with that remodeling, you have a better milieu, or what we call a better base for you to make decisions. It doesn't give you that base immediately. And antidepressants do not work like overnight. They're not paracetamol, a fever that resolves within a tablet. You take once, you take twice. It's not that. It takes a while for it to actually concentrate and evoke the change among your cells in your brain. And it doesn't work for everybody, by the way. It works well for some people, and for others, you need to try a few. You need to try longer, especially with elderly. We need to try longer. With young people, we also need to try longer. And also the dose. Sometimes people need a higher dose, lower dose, and no medication is without side effects. Most regularly used antidepressants have stomach upset as a side effect, headache as a side effect. That's the thing. Newer antidepressants are cleaner. Another problem with antidepressants with men is some antidepressants have sexual side effects. That is extremely intolerable when it comes to men. Men just don't want to take it because it causes sexual dysfunction. So nowadays we actually, and that's something that men also don't tell us. They just stop taking, say, I'm okay, doctor, I'm fine, or don't turn up for the appointment at all. They don't feel comfortable in sharing that. Again, that falls in why they don't tell us. That's why services, you don't tell the doctor, so the doctor has to ask. So that's why you should be very specific when you're talking to men, especially if you are a prescribing doctor. You actually have to be very sensitive in asking these side effects. You really would want to know, is that actually what's bothering you? And then address that. We have medications that work well for sexual side effects. We have some medications, sometimes people put on weight with some medications. Very rarely antidepressants, 1 or 2 can actually increase your appetite. So we have talked about that because some men really, really are very conscious if they gain weight. It's not just women, men are very conscious too. And then there's some men who do not want to be sluggish or sleepy because some medicines actually are quite sedative at night, or sometimes it goes on to daytime, and that affects work performance. So having the conversation of side effect conversation matters. That's about it.
Thank you, Dr. Ravi. I would like to move on to our next panelist, Dr. Florance. Dr. I believe you have a bigger mission for Sneham. So how does actually Sneham engage with Malaysian men and encourage them to seek help for their mental struggles that they go through, and how can is there any specific strategy or intervention that you have done and it has shown promising results? Please share with us more. Doctor, you need to unmute. You haven't unmuted. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. Actually, I wanted to add a few points that is being said before I talk about Sneham strategies. Yeah, I think first I want to touch on what Mr. Salim was saying, that when he was emotionally down, when he was going through depression, there's a lot of people would come and tell him, do this, do that. Why all these fail is because when a person is experiencing a crisis in their life, advice and solution doesn't work. I just want to touch on that. And then I think I also heard Dr. Ravi talking about, giving people the opportunity to talk. So the nature of helpline services, globally, this is what we do. We actually give a person the time, the space to talk. They want to be heard. Heard here is HEARD. They have so many things in their heart that they want to talk. So when they talk, usually when people are listening, they listen with an intent to reply. We listen with an intent to understand them, especially their feelings. Because the one that is, making them stuck in a situation is all the feelings, the anger, the frustration, the pain, the struggles, all that feelings. When we talk to them, we help them recognize the feelings and why these feelings is not able to make them move forward. And when we talk, and then that's when they say, yeah, so from a state of confusion, they start getting clarity. Oh, this is what went wrong with my life, and this is where I went through a painful divorce. I'm so embarrassed, I'm so angry, and on all that feelings make them so confused. And when they speak and when they giving them a listening ear, they start getting clarity, right? So then what we do is that we don't give advice, we don't give solution, because it is their life. So we explore options with them. Now that we've talked about all of these things, we summarize for them. What would you like to do? Sometimes they already have a solution, but it's just that they're not, ready to take the step. So helping them to explore option is another step. Now, I'm talking about these individuals, not who are already having mental health issues, who are not clinically diagnosed. They're still able to think, confused, and able to take the next step to move forward. So I thought I actually fill that in because in my experience talking to people, they all know what they want to do in life. They tell you, I don't know, I'm so confused. But when we talk to them, when they get all their feelings out, and so time is a factor here. So if you don't rush them, we give them their time, the opportunity, the open space to talk. We're non-judgmental. We say this conversation is confidential. People just open up. They talk, and then it helps. And then another thing I just want to say is also, because this one is touching on Dr. Ravi's area, most of the time we do have calls from people who are suffering from mental health issues. And from the way they talk to us, we know they have clinical conditions. right? So when they have clinical conditions, we do ask them, have you seen doctors? They will tell us, I've seen doctor, but the medication is not working for me. So, and the reason why I'm saying is that because they want an instant fix of their problem. And it doesn't work in mental illness. Like Mr. Salim was saying, because it takes long term. This is something that maybe doctors, or sometimes when they call us, we say medications take time, right? And if you have side effects, do tell them. Sometimes the side effects make them stop the medication. And sometimes it's because I don't want to take forever. Some medications make them sleepy. And so they stop taking, and then there's a relapse. So these are issues that people with mental health issues are facing. So from our end, we actually, do a lot of work around advocacy, talk about this issue of mental health, talk about the issue of suicide, depression, that it is a illness which is treatable, right? Which is treatable because our objective is suicide prevention. Death by any other means we can't stop, but suicide is preventable. So early diagnosis and treatment, reaching out for help, it's okay. We want to create a habit of help-seeking behavior. It's okay to ask, talk to your spouse, talk to someone. If you don't have anybody, call helpline, talk to somebody that you have a problem and reach out for help. That's something that we are also doing. And the other issues is that strategies that work for us is that targeted help. If certain people have certain issues, targeted interventions does help. And of course, we are doing a lot of work around removing stigma. I think we have come a long way. Dr. Ravi will agree, and Mr. Ganga also will agree. In the past, people don't talk about mental illness. People will not talk about suicide. Today, we have come to a stage, and today we are doing a forum for men, zero male suicide. So we need to get such forums going, that it's okay. Like at one time, cancer was a taboo subject. Today, people are talking about, I'm cancer free, right? So one day we want people to say, I am a depression survivor, I have schizophrenia. We want to reach that state for people to be able to talk about it. And Sneham's role is to help people go on that mission, that we still remain as a helpline, which is, I see ourselves as, mental health first aid supporters. We provide mental health first aid. When I'm suffocating, when I'm unable to, deal with my emotions, the helplines are giving me the first line of support. And sometimes when they talk to us and their issues are bordering the lines of mental illness, we immediately say, don't go and see a doctor. We talk to them, we hear them out. And once we get their confidence and, their trust, then we say, your symptoms appear to be serious. How about, going to a doctor? Let them do a clinical assessment and give you medication. So in that way, we're still holding hands and telling them, please go see a doctor, right? And so because the minute if they call and we say, oh, your issues, this one, we can't help you, go and see a doctor, they will hang up the phone. Because and if they are in the verge of taking their life, there goes a life, because we didn't give them time to talk. So like what Dr. Ravi said, we do ask questions. When someone says comments like, I feel like sleeping forever, or I have these wonderful things that I really cherish, I don't need them anymore, I want to give it away. So comments like this, indirect hints that they're going to do something to themselves, right? And we probe, are you thinking about committing suicide? And they say yes, because this is like a relief. They have been like actually struggling with this feeling and the thought for all by themselves. That question is actually opens up an opportunity to tell someone, I am stabbing my heart with so many pieces of knife every day for years. Here you are, really showing concern and asking me, yes. And then we talk to them. We talk and talk and talk. So I've had cases like that during COVID. Someone actually called me, didn't say that I want to commit suicide. He said, I have a message to leave, a message for my wife that, all my savings, she's the beneficiary. Now, in the middle of the night, when someone is calling and saying that, we already know that there's something behind why they're actually calling and leaving a message that I'm leaving my savings for my wife. Apparently, they are separated, and this man was calling to say, I'm calling to leave a message. That was the first conversation he when he started say hello. He said, he of course spoke in Bahasa and said, I want to tinggal pesan. I have a message to leave. And he said, apa pesan itu? Then he said, saya punya EPF semua atas nama isteri saya. So conversation went on. So when I hear this conversation, I knew that he's a troubled individual. I prolonged the conversation, and of course, by the time we established a trust, a rapport, he was able to confide more and realize that he wanted to end his life that night. Today, the gentleman is leaving. And, so such things is what we do in helpline services. So this mission that we are doing, I think globally we are connected also. Sneham is part of Lifeline International and also Befrienders Network UK. So everywhere if you go, this nature of work is like this. We provide emotional support for people who are in imminent danger of hurting themselves, or even if they are not, we tell them to call helpline and talk to somebody if you don't have anyone to talk to. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Florence. We have a question from the public. I would like to share the questions, and one of you can take it up. Please, the question is, please explain the difference between suicide and euthanasia.
Yeah, actually, I saw that question. Suicide is one making an effort to take their own life. Euthanasia is aided, way of ending a life, especially those who are with terminal illness. There are some countries, it's legal for someone to assist the person to end their life. And maybe Dr. Ravi can add more. I saw the question coming in just now. Suicide is an attempt made to take one's own life, and euthanasia is aided by someone to end their life in the event of a chronic illness or terminal illness where there's no hope of living. In some countries, it is legal. Apparently, our country is not, because we have, decriminalized suicide, but not aided. So euthanasia is still not, removed from the decriminalizing of suicide. Dr. Ravi?
I think the conversation on euthanasia is one that's quite complex. I would say that when we have suicide prevention discussions, it's often it does come about. And when it comes about, I often have to say that you have to see this as separate issues. And I think Dr. Florence has put it very clearly, where there's intentional ending of one's own life by oneself versus assistance. And assistance often comes with physician assistance, and then there's a lot of regulations to that. And countries that have legalized euthanasia themselves, they are very different as well in different countries. It's different in Canada compared to Netherlands, and in terms of rate, in the rate of how it is, and the indications as well. So that's a conversation that I think that we can. I think this answer should be enough, but I think that's a conversation that one should have for another day. Right. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Florence and Dr. Ravi. I would really love to ask more questions. The session is really interesting, and there's a lot more for us to ask and get your expertise from, but due to time limitation, I'm going to ask the final question. So my final question to each one of you is, today is a very meaningful day, and the theme that the entire global is speaking about, lobbying about, is zero male suicide. So what would be your message, your strong message, and your request on this special day to all the men out there in Malaysia and in the world? So, who would like to start?
Okay. When a person decides that he wants to end his life, he faces a situation where he has given up hope in himself, his family, his friends, the community, So he's left with the option of no way out, So this is where we got to reach out and say, we are here. We are here. Please give us a chance. We leave it to them. Again, we have our say, and we leave it to the person to decide what they want to do, But again, once we follow our philosophy of being acceptance, non-judgmental, non-directive, they will start talking, which leaves us to another dilemma. They start talking, they become comfortable, they go on and on and on. And suddenly behind a mind as a volunteer, you realize that you got to fetch your child in just 10 minutes from school and you have not made alternate arrangements. How do we end the call? So this also, we have taught our volunteers how to leave the door open to. So just before the time, we will tactfully tell them, look, I realize a problem. I wish I could continue talking. Perhaps you would like to call us another day. I'll be willing to listen to you. And quite often they understand it. You can't stop properly and say, look, time to go, another time, just like that. You have to put it very tactfully. So these are some of the dilemmas faced by volunteers, which I have learned to cope.
Thank you, Mr. Ganga. Dr. Ravi?
No suicide is fated. Suicides happen because of many reasons. So all of us have a part to play in suicide prevention. Suicide prevention is everybody's business.
Thank you. Dr. Florance?
Yeah, I actually wanted to echo that there's so many deaths that happen, but death by suicide can be prevented. Again, I echo what Dr. Ravi said. It's everybody's responsibility. The individual, if you have suicidal thoughts, men out there, if you have these thoughts about suicidal, it is not just your human weakness. It's actually a disease. Recognize the need for you to go see a doctor or even call helpline. So the individual need to do something about it. Then the family. If you see a sudden change in behavior of an individual, ask, why are you crying? Why are you actually locking yourself in the room? Ask, find out why the change in a behavior. And then, of course, community. Stop, treating an individual differently. Discrimination also is an issue. And then community also create an environment that this is a mental health issue. Stop stigmatizing people with mental illness and issues of talking about suicide. Do not stigmatize. And of course, the other piece is when we look at multifaceted, the other one is policies. We need to have right policies to encourage suicide prevention. The enforcement people also need to realize, and also healthcare professionals, when people approach, usually they will only talk about the symptoms. When you treat the symptoms, the actual problem don't go away. Sometimes they could not have slept for so many days. They say, I have a headache. They get a Panadol. They go home. But when they talk helpline, they've been telling us more than just a headache. So find out a bit more about this individual. I think if all of us come together, we can reach out to anyone who is, wanting to hurt themselves by committing suicide. So we can do something about that. So that's my message for everyone.
Thank you, Dr. Florance. Now, Salim, I certainly want to hear from you.
Now, I need to tell everyone here who's listening that misfortunes in life can happen just like that. You got to be prepared. It can even happen to you. So if you have a family member who's going through depression, the whole family member will be affected. Need to give support. Now, depression, if you're having depression, you're not mad. We really need to talk about it. Now, the most important thing is that untreated depression can lead to suicide. That's why the family member must understand. If any one of you are going through misfortunes in life, you as a family member, please take notice and help them, because sometimes they can cope, like Dr. Ravi said, but sometimes some people cannot cope, especially if he's a man. You need to talk to them. You need to find a way and seek treatment. Now, based on my research, based on my personal experience, there are 4 types of people when it comes to antidepressant. Trust me, 4 types. The first type of person is the very educated people, PhD. You know what they told me? I say I'm going to go for antidepressant. You know what they told me? You shouldn't take it. You will become addicted. Trust me, you don't become addicted to antidepressant. The side effects will come first: nausea, vomiting, all that. How can you get addicted? It's not ketamine. Second thing are the very, very traditional people, the people who don't believe in science. They told me being a being a Muslim, they told me, some even told me there's a demon inside my head. Demon went inside. Yeah. I asked them, why not angel, but demons? They said demons were inside, some things inside my head. Nothing to do. It's just amygdala hijack. Your brain, just your prefrontal cortex shut down, is amygdala hijack, sending you for permanent solution. The third type of people, based on myself, very religious people, they told me, God loves you. Our teachers those days have suffered, you should suffer. No, suffering can be ended immediately using science. So do not delay suffering, because depression is the most difficult thing that one can go through. The last type of people that I met are the very, very understanding, scientific-minded people. They told me, Salim, go and meet a doctor. They can solve your problem. So these are the 4 people that I met. They are all fellow Malaysians, middle-class families, educated people, and they have virtually zero knowledge on depression. How about the B40s? What about the rest? They might be believing in so many other demon, Walker, and all that. So that's why, just like Dr. Ravi mentioned, Dr. Florence, we really need to destigmatize and talk about and create depression literacy among our fellow citizens in Malaysia. That's my final take on that.
Thank you so much, Salim. Thank you so much, panelists. Before I pass the floor to the moderator, my take back and my, I would say, pledge to the mans out there. Mans, your life matters. It's a gift given by God. There's no wrong seeking for support. There's no wrong being vulnerable and being emotional. You are also another gift to the mankind. If you need, just approach someone for support. Just seek support and just speak out, because your life matters. Thank you. And I pass the floor to the moderator, Suresh. Suresh, can you unmute?
Thank you. Yes, thank you. Thank you, Nirmala. Thank you to all the speakers, Dr. Ravi, Dr. Florence, Mr. Ganga, Mr. Salim. Thank you for an awesome time. Lots of sharing. I think every single sharing that you've done today mattered. You never know who it's helping out there in Malaysia, in Asia, globally. Through all the 3 channels, FB Live, YouTube Live, and LinkedIn Live, it's reaching out to audience in 94 countries where IMD and Voice of 360 is present via the members, who are volunteers. So it's going to reach out today. It's going to stay on all these 3 channels, the recording, and it's going to be viewed continuously by so many people, men and women, who has families, who has friends, who have colleagues. So this recording is going to be amazing. I'm quite sure it's going to go viral in all of these countries. My message from one man to all men out there, whether you are suffering or whether it could be your family member, you don't know whether your family member is suffering. I've just got this one message. No one is too busy. It's not about finding time. It's about making time. If it really matters, you will make time to look around within your family, your friends, your colleagues, because from all of the 4 speakers, the one single message is that Mr. Salim, exactly what he said, what Dr. Florence has said, Dr. Ravi, Mr. Ganga, whether they came to see the doctor or through some way the treatment happened, other than, of course, they called the helpline and they spoke to people like Dr. Florence and Mr. Ganga and their respective colleagues. Someone intervened. But more importantly, before that, many cases, before even reaching the helpline, before even reaching doctors like Dr. Ravi, because they had family members and friends who looked around and realized that, why is this person quiet? Why is this person suddenly being generous? One of you all said being generous. And if you noticed it, reach out to them. It's important for all of us in this conversation and globally is going to watch this video. Look around within your family, in your friends, and in your office, and wherever you are. All of you can save a life. That's one important message I want to leave for all of you. All of you can save a life. Remember that. By keeping your eyes wide open, all of you can save a life. We are, as a next step, IMD in International Men Group and Voice of Men 360. We would like to make the sharing. We are discussing internally now with Dr. Florance and others. We are working on an initiative to start an international men's mental health team to support and serve men around the world. Still in discussion, nothing finalized, still in discussion, early stages. So we will update through our website and maybe through our various YouTube and FB channels and LinkedIn channels to once it's finalized and we launch this. Well, finally, IMD Malaysia, Voice of Men 360 and International Men's Day. We would like to hear from you other than all of the four experts and those who had personal experience that came online and shared personal experience like Mr. Salim. It's very difficult to get people like Mr. Salim who have gone through to come online. Thank you so much, Salim. Thank you so much, Dr. Ravi. I know as a doctor, it's very, very difficult to make your time to come online today, even for Sunday. I'm sure you might be on call working. Dr. Florance, thank you so much. Everything that you said is going to help a lot of people. Everything that all of you said is going to help a lot of people. Mr. Ganga, even though you have retired from active service with Befrienders, thank you for continuously using your experience to continue to be out there to help the elderly people who need your knowledge. And you could never know, you could be helping, saving people, saving lives every day, Mr. Ganga. Yeah, from everything that you're doing. Yeah. So to the public out there, we want to reach out to you. We want to hear from you. Please email us if you have any ideas from just what I just said, that we want to start an international men's mental health team to support people globally. So if you have any ideas around this or anything else that we can possibly work around in different countries, please send an email to info@voiceofmen360.org. And also, please do check out all of our social media links on Facebook, which is Facebook page, which is Voice of Men 360, our YouTube channels, our FB channels, our LinkedIn channels, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. We are online everywhere 24/7. So to end this, we also thank Sivam. He's online. Actually, he's the founder of Voice of Men 360. We have that's the platform that we are using today. And thank you to Voice of Men 360 and thank you to Sivam. And Sivam, any points? If not, we can end this wonderful, awesome session.
Yeah, I will close it with two messages actually. Happy International Men's Day to all of you. Special thanks to all of you guys. This is very huge. And without your contribution, especially Florance and Suresh, of course, and other people, not only from this panelist, but at the same time from other part of the world, Dr. Jerome and other supporters, we are very much want to thank. I know there are quite a number of organizations, media, and other platforms. They want to be supporting us. So please accept our thanks. The other thing is that just one message. In a sperm, 2.2 million lives comes. 1 or 2, 3 maybe fighting for coming to this earth, and that lives has so many things to contribute to this world. To end middle of their contribution or their living in this world, it is not acceptable, or it is not. We cannot really think anyway around. So under any circumstances, we cannot accept that. So ending their lives, it is not acceptable. So if we can save one life, we can save many lives. So please, please, please take this message and share. Don't just leave share with other people. So this way the message can spread, and we can reach more people. We can help more people. We don't know. It can be one word from this 2 hour, almost 2 hours conversation, one word, one line, or one message, or whole discussion can make some kind of positive impact in somebody's life. You can be one of them. Thank you all. Thank you.
One message before we close. Thank you to all supporting organizations: LTT Global Communications, WHD, Sneham, Inclusive Outdoor Classroom. If I missed out anything, Rotary Club of Malawati, who shared this out to the entire Rotary network, which is global. Rotary is a global network. A Voice, CEADO Johor, Shadow Johor, and Lifeline International. Thank you so much to all of your sharing. I know the entire week, all of them been sharing and tagging, and this is an awesome session imagine on the International Men's Day, November 19, and we made this happen. Amazing session happened with thanks to once again all the panelists. Thank you so much. Good night. Go out there and save a life. Good night.